One of the amazing truths around us is that the overwhelming majority of Muslims were raised in a Muslim household, and the overwhelming majority of Catholics were raised in a Catholic household, and the overwhelming majority of Hindus were raised in a Hindu household. We talk sometimes like we choose religions like we choose cars. We hunt around until we find the one that's just perfect for us. But not really. If being a Muslim or a Catholic or a Hindu feels just right to me, it's not because I filled out the Belief-O-Matic questionnaire. It's because this is familiar to me. And this is what everyone in my world is. But sometimes we do change. Why? Nope, it isn't ideas. People will continue being Catholic in spite of that secret denial of the never-ending virginity of Mary. And Muslims will continue being Muslims long after they've secretly decided that the Quran isn't quite what the tradition says it is, as long as nothing else messes it up. Sexual abuse? I'm out of here. Did you call my daughter a prostitute? Bye-bye. Did you really invite everyone in the congregation to the barbecue except me? I'm gone. People who aren't religious wonder what religious people see in their religion, and the answer is pretty simple, really. Community. Especially now in America, where we've seen a dizzying decline in our social connections. An article in Time magazine in 2015 noted that 0 was the #1 response when people were asked, how many close friends do you have? Social organizations like volunteer groups, clubs, professional fraternities, guilds, and unions, they're just not a big part of our society anymore. The #1 reason people join a religion is social, not intellectual or theological. They're so nice there is probably the most common statement. Religious communities can offer the people connections we crave, and when they do, what happens? One of Cat Stevens' albums in the 1970s was titled Foreigner. After several very successful albums, you might at least know the song Morning Has Broken, he decided he wanted to immerse himself in a different kind of music, the kind of music he loved to listen to. At the time he called it black music, a wide sampling of Stevie Wonder and Little Richard, and going back even before he was born, Leadbelly. Now, musical cross-fertilization has produced greatness. That is, after all, how we have jazz and bluegrass and rock and roll and hip-hop. But through it all, Cat Stevens was aware that he was an outsider to it. And there you go. That's the experience of the convert. Look, converts have a reputation. Walk into a Catholic church just before the priest comes in for the processional and ask, does anybody here know why we genuflect? The hand that pops up, that's the convert. Okay, I better say this, don't do that. This is just a thought experiment. Look, I'm Catholic, and I asked my own family and nobody knew. And why would they need to anyway? We genuflected because Mom told us we were supposed to when we were kids, and that is an experience a convert doesn't have. Time for a sidebar. Genuflecting is bending to one knee and crossing yourself just before you enter your seat or when you leave for the day. Catholics genuflect because they believe that the tabernacle, that's a box in the front of the room with leftover bread from previous services, holds the real presence of Jesus Christ. It's an homage thing. We now return you to our lecture. Okay, where were we? Oh yeah. Go to the synagogue on a Friday night and hang out for the oneg. That's the symbolic Sabbath feast after the services. And listen for the Yiddish. The person who's littering the conversation with words like schlep and schlemiel and yinta and meshugana, that's the convert. Jews who are raised in the United States don't have much need for a dying language from Eastern Europe. Converts tend to be the super faithful. They're the ones who read everything about their new religion's history and beliefs and practices. They can spend decades, even the rest of their lives, feeling like an outsider. They don't know what it's like not to have to think about being in this new religion. But everyone else in the room does know. So converts make up for that lack of mother's milk experience by soaking up everything else. It's never quite the same, but it is better than nothing. Think about a different kind of convert, the immigrant who becomes a U.S. citizen. Here's an oft-repeated piece of information that should get all of you native-born Americans thinking. Those who take the oath of citizenship can usually run circles around you when it comes to their understanding of American government and American history. Their English may well end up being way better than yours. They're busting their tukuses, that's Yiddish by the way, to reach the American dream, and they'll be standing in line to vote while you pass election day as a civic klumnik, that's Yiddish too. They end up looking way more American than most U.S.-born Americans, but are they really American? Well, legally, of course, yes. But most immigrants will tell you that people here always will treat them as outsiders and guests. And people back where they came from begin to treat them as outsiders as well. You've changed. We use hyphens to talk about these people: Mexican American, Lebanese American, Korean American. And they're neither one of those anymore. So what are they? Well, I imagine that taking the oath of citizenship cannot possibly erase their first 24 years in Mexico or India or China, so they can't ever not be Mexican and Indian and Chinese. But they can't replace that with American. So instead, they put on American as something of a second layer. And that's very much the religious convert's experience as well. The Greek Orthodox person who becomes a Muslim cannot simply replace the Greek Orthodox at the core. Instead, Islam is blended into that first tradition, or is it the other way around? That person ends up seeing their Islam through Greek Orthodox eyes. That means that the outsider is recreating their new religion, at least for themselves. And sometimes a convert can recreate the tradition for others as well. Religion is people, to repeat the theme of the course. People bring something to their religion. The ones who grow up in the religion bring things too, but the religious bits are probably pretty familiar to everybody else in the tradition. The convert can bring a radical new way to look at the tradition, and if room is made for their voice, the tradition may shift noticeably. We've already met Ashoka this semester, the Hindu king who converted to Buddhism in remorse for a bloody battle. And as you might expect, he took his new religion very seriously, and as a result, Buddhism became history's first world religion. And one of the most famous converts in history is Augustine of Hippo. His long conversion story is the theme of his book, Confessions. And in the end, Augustine articulated his Christianity in a way that stands head and shoulders above nearly every other Christian since. And here's an interesting one. The Khazar kingdom, in what is roughly today Ukraine and southwestern Russia, converted and became a Jewish kingdom sometime between 740 and 920 CE. The details are murky and they may be exaggerated, but at least the royal family converted, and as a result they added a balance between the Muslim Abbasid Empire in the south and the Christian Byzantine Empire in the west.